Welcome to Out of the Blue B, number 0172. I'm going to speak Neo-Swedenborgianistically for a moment and tell the story of how these two different lines of thought converged. On the one side, we had these near-death experiences you hear about, people reporting about a greater reality, and it was more real than real. They died and went down a tunnel, and they came out in this land of light that was realer, they would say, than Earth. But that's their story. Then the skeptics would say it's only in your head. Well, it's only in your head. And the skeptics would use that phrase to sort of dismiss it. Well, it's only in your head. But what Neo-Swedenborgianism points out is that we all have heads. And if you're saying something is in your head, in other words, it's in your mind, that puts it into the scientific category of neuroscience. And therefore, God is real because God is experienced as real by humans. Okay? And it is only in your head. So your head, meaning your psyche or your physiology, is able to create a convincing greater reality. So what Neo-Swedenborgianism says is that the greater reality cannot be proven to be real. What can be proven to be real is the human propensity to have this greater reality. So I can't say that the greater reality is actually real. I can say it's convincing, and I can say I have at least a 10% chance of experiencing this thing, which may or may not be real. And we're just actually saying, as Neo-Swedenborgians, we're saying it's not real. We're saying it's only in your head. It's neuroscience, it's neurophysiology. God is real because God is experienced as real by humans. So God is only real within this human theater. That's why you don't see it or him or her in telescopes or in microscopes. Like if you look in a huge microscope and you see no God, look in the telescope, no God, look out here, no where, you just see it in human experience only. It is a human experience. God is a human experience. But that is also to say that God is. So Neo-Swedenborgians do not believe in God because we can prove God to exist as a consistent, predictable, and observable human experience, right? Okay, so that's on the one side. That's 3 minutes. Let's try to do this in 6 minutes. On the other side, you have these spiritualist writers like Hewat McKenzie. Now there's a new one I found, Robert Lee's. It's outstanding. And they're all describing this world which seems influenced by Swedenborg's writings. Swedenborg wrote in the 1760s, and these people were around in the 1880s. So they're a generation or two later. And this whole group of writers, which I've listed elsewhere, Hewat, Francesco, Rebecca Springer, Intramuros, and Monsignor Hugh Benson, Life in the World Unseen, they describe in detail this greater world that these people go to. And I'm finding new ones all the time. There's a whole genre of spiritualist writings from the 1890s. This new one is called Through the Mist by Robert Lees. And they seem to describe the same world, which is a Swedenborgian influence world with houses and occupations and clothes and rivers and trees and all this stuff. Okay, that's all well and good. And so I noticed that these two things overlap. Okay, that's also very good. But then in 2019, I read about the Van Allen belts, energy belts around Earth. That were discovered in 1958. I read about them in 2019. This J. Hewat McKenzie book, which I had been referencing for years already, wrote about it and mapped it in 1916. So I've made what I think is the greatest discovery of the current age. I think this is an epoch-changing observation, that the Van Allen belts were described by a spiritualist before they were ever discovered. The Wiki says 36,000 miles. That's the Wiki on the Van Allen belts. Discovered in 1958. The 1916 book says 35,580 miles for the same thing 40 years before they were discovered. The Van Allen belts are heaven.